The Las Vegas Grand Prix might be remembered for its intense drama, but it wasn't just the race that had everyone talking. Charles Leclerc, fresh off a hard-fought battle, couldn't hide his frustration after crossing the finish line. Despite a respectable finish, the tension between him and his teammate, Carlos Sainz, boiled over in a post-race meltdown. Leclerc, who had just missed out on the podium, made it clear that internal team dynamics weren't sitting right with him. He later admitted that he felt certain agreements within the team had been disregarded, and with the stakes of the Drivers' Championship high, he didn't hold back in expressing his displeasure. After a race full of position swaps, where Leclerc was just a couple of seconds behind Sainz, he let loose with a pointed outburst. His race engineer, Brian Vosey, tried to intervene, but Leclerc wasn't having it. The exchange quickly turned heated, with Leclerc making it clear that he was tired of being on the receiving end of what he felt was unfair treatment. "I did my job, but it feels like I'm getting screwed over all the time," he said. His words were sharp, a reflection of the mounting frustration that had been building up throughout the race. Leclerc's anger didn't stop there. After Vosey tried to calm him down and remind him of his responsibility, Leclerc shot back, sarcastically agreeing to everything his engineer said. But it wasn't just the race performance that had him upset, it was the lack of respect for certain decisions that were supposed to be in place. With his voice rising, Leclerc didn't hold back. Yeah, I did my job, but it's not about that. It's about being treated with respect." The frustration was palpable, especially after he had willingly let Sainz pass earlier in the race, believing it was to help the team. But that strategy backfired, as both drivers struggled with tire degradation, and Leclerc quickly found himself battling to regain his position. The real frustration for Leclerc seemed to stem from the fact that he had followed the team's instructions, only to see those same instructions ignored when it came to team strategy. As Ferrari's tactics became more confusing, and with tire management playing a bigger role, Leclerc found himself in a tight spot, trying to balance team orders with his own championship hopes. His bitterness was clear when he sarcastically agreed to the team's post-race orders. Yeah, I'll pick up the rubber. Whatever you want," he snapped. As the race came to an end, Leclerc's frustration wasn't just about his own performance, it was about the team's lack of coordination. Ferrari had prepared for Sainz's pit stop, but when it was Leclerc's turn, there was confusion. Sainz had already made his stop, and Leclerc was warned that he might be racing against his teammate once he exited the pit lane. But despite these warnings, when Leclerc rejoined the track, he found himself in a fight for position with Sainz once again. After Ferrari had told Leclerc not to put Sainz under pressure, the unexpected happened. Sainz overtook him. The exchange left Leclerc visibly frustrated, and he wasted no time in addressing the issue over the team radio, hinting at the breakdown in communication. "Maybe try speaking in Spanish," he quipped, clearly upset that the team's strategy had left him in a difficult position. Even after the race, when pressed by Sky Sports about the incident, Leclerc didn't hide his annoyance, though he kept his comments brief. "I did my best," he said, acknowledging his efforts despite the disappointing race results. "But sometimes things don't go the way you expect." While he didn't elaborate further, it was clear that there was a deeper issue beneath the surface, one that wasn't just about tire management or race strategy. Leclerc, though careful with his words, hinted that there were things going on within the team that weren't being respected or communicated properly. Leclerc's post-race comments painted a picture of more than just race day frustration. It seemed like there were unresolved issues within the team that had been simmering for some time. He mentioned that it wasn't about team favoritism, but about promises and agreements that were not being honored. "We were told things that weren't respected," he stated. His words suggested that the tension between him and his teammate wasn't just a race day incident, but the result of ongoing misunderstandings. He clarified that, while the team didn't intend to favor one driver over the other, the lack of consistency in the approach was starting to take a toll. Despite the frustrations, Leclerc maintained a professional stance when it came to his relationship with Sainz. "It's not about Carlos," he said. "It's just that sometimes things just don't go as planned." However, it was clear that this wasn't just about the race itself. Leclerc's comments about feeling disrespected by the team reflected a deeper issue regarding Ferrari's internal communication. This wasn't the first time the two drivers had clashed over team strategy, and judging by Leclerc's response, it likely won't be the last. The tension was further amplified by the fact that, with 2 races left in the season, the pressure was mounting not just for the Drivers' Championship, but for Ferrari's position in the Constructors' standings as well. Leclerc's frustration with the way the team handled the race didn't just stem from his personal performance, it was tied to the bigger picture: the team's failure to close the gap on their rivals, especially McLaren. As the conversation around Ferrari's internal tensions grew, Both Leclerc and Sainz remained cautious about airing too much publicly. However, it was becoming evident that things were not as harmonious as they might appear on the surface. Leclerc's comments about not being fully supported by the team during the race echoed the frustrations that had been bubbling up for some time. He acknowledged that while the team was doing its best, the communication breakdowns had led to missed opportunities. "I did my part, but the rest." "Well, we'll talk about that inside the team," Leclerc said, clearly hinting that there were deeper issues at play beyond just race strategy. It wasn't just Leclerc who felt let down by Ferrari's handling of the situation. Sainz, too, expressed dissatisfaction with how things had unfolded. He revealed that he had asked the team multiple times to call him into the pits earlier, to avoid losing time on worn tires. "I grained my mediums, and I asked the team to box me to avoid losing more time behind," Charles Sainz explained. "But they didn't listen, and by the time I got into the pits, it was already too late." This misstep meant that Sainz was forced to give up position to Leclerc later in the race, a move that cost him valuable time. Both drivers were caught in a frustrating situation where neither of them seemed to be fully in control of their own race. Sainz's dissatisfaction with the team's response during the race mirrored Leclerc's, and both acknowledged that it was a situation that could have been handled much better. Despite the frustrations and the post-race tension, both Leclerc and Sainz understood that the situation wasn't ideal for anyone. Ferrari's race execution had left both drivers feeling like they could have done more, and the pressure was mounting with each missed opportunity. While Leclerc vented about the lack of respect for pre-race agreements, Sainz acknowledged that the team's inability to respond to their requests had made things harder on both of them. "It's frustrating, but it's not just one person's fault," Sainz admitted. "The whole team had their hands tied at points during the race." The tension within Ferrari's garage was palpable, but it wasn't just about the drivers' performances, it was about the team's position within the championship standings. With the Constructors' Championship still in play and McLaren closing the gap, every race result was crucial. As Sainz noted, "We could have finished higher than P3 and P4 today, but we didn't." And that's a real shame, considering how close we are to McLaren-Ferrari's strategy calls, and pit stop errors cost them more than just track position, they cost them valuable points in the championship battle. Both drivers knew it, and the reality set in that Ferrari needed to work harder to close the gap to their rivals. Despite all the tension, Leclerc made it clear that he wasn't about to let his frustrations get the best of him. "I'll focus on myself from now on," he said firmly. "At the next race, I'm not going to worry about anyone else. It's all about me and my performance." This decision to prioritize his own race, rather than worrying about team dynamics, marked a shift in Leclerc's approach as he prepared for the final races of the season. As the season drew to a close, it was clear that the relationship between Leclerc and Sainz had shifted. Leclerc, usually one to keep things diplomatic, made it clear that he would no longer play by the same set of rules when it came to team orders. "I won't be worrying about Carlos anymore," he stated bluntly. "We had an agreement before the race, and once again, I'm the one respecting it. That won't be the case in the next race. From now on, it's all about me." With the Drivers' Championship slipping further away from his grasp and the Constructors' battle still hot, Leclerc had made a decision to take matters into his own hands. The tension wasn't just about race results, it was personal. Leclerc had spent the entire season trying to balance team loyalty with his own goals, but after everything that had happened in Las Vegas, he no longer seemed willing to do that. He wasn't going to be the only one playing by the team's rules if it meant sacrificing his own shot at success. As he prepared for the final races of the season, Leclerc made it clear that he would put his individual ambitions first, leaving team unity to sort itself out later. Sainz, who was already leaving Ferrari at the end of the season, echoed similar sentiments. He wasn't happy with how the team had handled his strategy calls either. "It wasn't just Charles," he added. "We were all in the same boat. The team didn't respond the way we needed them to. And that cost us." With Ferrari's internal struggles on full display, the only thing left for both drivers to do was to try to salvage what they could from the remaining races. As for Ferrari, they knew they had a serious issue on their hands. The breakdown in communication between the drivers, the strategists, and the engineers was becoming impossible to ignore. But with just a couple of races left, all they could do was try to get through it without further fracturing the team. If things didn't improve, both Leclerc and Sainz were set to leave Ferrari in very different states than when they arrived. So, with just a few more races to go, the big question remained: can Ferrari fix its internal struggles before it's too late? And more importantly, was Leclerc's decision to focus on himself the right one for his future in Formula One? As the tension continues to rise, the remaining races are sure to be filled with drama both on and off the track.